In the case of the Russian sabotage operation on Polish railways, the authorities detained a suspect named Mikhailo CH, a Ukrainian citizen. It turned out that the 34-year-old man had 46 Russian-issued passports in his possession. The court ruled this was not a sufficient enough reason to place him in custody. Questions arise from the fact he was protected by 3 lawyers. This situation has grim implications for the state of Polish law enforcement. Mikhailo CH is one of 4 people detained by the Internal Security Agency, ABW, and the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBSP, in connection with an investigation into acts of sabotage carried out on behalf of the Russian Secret Services last Saturday and Sunday. The detentions took place a week ago, on Tuesday, November 18th. The prosecutor's office demanded that the Ukrainian citizen be remanded in custody. However, on Friday, the District Court for Warsaw-Śródmieście did not agree to this. Interestingly, 34-year-old Mikhailo was defended by as many as 3 lawyers. The prosecutor's office did not comment on the case immediately, but on Monday, its spokesperson laconically stated it was nothing serious. We only presented this person with the charge of concealing documents, i.e. the charge under Article 236 of the Criminal Code. Relative to the subject matter of this case, this is a minor charge. Today, we tried to ask the prosecutor's office for details of this case and whether they intend to appeal, as the court's decision was not final. Unfortunately, however, we did not receive a response by the time this material was edited. It is clear that the state security system is in complete disarray today, that today, spies from hostile countries like Belarus and Russia can roam freely throughout our country. So what could have gone wrong? How is it possible that a man who has 46 passports issued in Russia is at large? In addition, it is not known whether the services know his whereabouts. The court must have evidence, but in this case, there was a lapse of imagination that I cannot understand. Unfortunately, this makes the services' work more difficult, and a man who poses a real threat to us is free. Poland has been under hybrid attack by Russia for years. One manifestation of this is sabotage. It started with vulgar propaganda slogans targeting the then-ruling government intended to drive division, then mysterious fires across the country, and then sabotage on the railways. More than a week has passed since this attack, and one person, Volodymyr B., who, according to investigators, allegedly helped with the sabotage, has been detained. However, the 2 people directly responsible for this attack have long since fled to Belarus. In this situation, the released person may sit quietly on his couch and laugh, just as the Russians laugh at the Polish state, which is participating in and, unfortunately, losing a hybrid war with the Russian Federation. The arsonist who set fire to the market hall on Marawilska Street in Warsaw had already fled Poland. It looks as if the state is completely dysfunctional, a playground for hostile agents. The courts are releasing people despite serious charges. Releasing them proves that our state is functioning very poorly. The government's actions are not helping the situation. Prime Minister Donald Tusk has forbidden the heads of the secret services from contacting the president. In this era of Russian sabotage, this threatens national security. On the orders of the Polish Prime Minister, Polish service officers are refusing to meet the president. And what is equally disturbing is the fact that these heads of services did not come to talk about their officers and agents. And at a time when hostile agents come and go freely, according to journalist Jarosław Jakimczyk, Marian Radziejewski, imprisoned in Russia for spying for Poland, has been transferred to a 3rd maximum security labor camp. His family does not even know where to send him mail.
The Yad Vashem Institute recently made the claim that Poland was the first country to introduce the obligation on Jews to wear armbands. Poland was the first country where Jews were forced to wear a distinctive badge in order to isolate them from the surrounding population. This post has still not been removed, and it has reached nearly 4.5 million people. Exactly 1 year ago, the Institute's post about this sad anniversary sounded different. 23rd of November 1939, Hans Frank, the governor of the General Gouvernement, issued an order that all Jews aged 10 and above must wear a white cloth armband 10 centimeters wide, marked with the blue Star of David on their right arm. According to Marek Magierowski, former Polish ambassador to Israel, this post was entirely deliberate. During my tenure in Israel, I never ever heard any Israeli politician, historian or expert speak positively about Poland in any aspect. Anti-Polish sentiment has significant political traction in Israel, and recent migration from Russia to Israel only reinforces this phenomenon. Professor Piotr Grochmalski links a provocative post to the recent peace talks, which may create a new security order not only in Ukraine but throughout Central and Eastern Europe. Here, all the assets of the SSB and GRU are being used powerfully, including their influence on Israeli resources, and we can clearly see that Russia has managed to practically silence our voice and our ability to participate in this process.
It is my honor to invite His Excellency, Mr. Vladimir Putin, President of
The good relations between the Yad Vashem Institute and Putin's Russia are no secret. These are photos from 5 years ago where the Russian dictator, as a guest of honor, spoke at a conference marking the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau camp. 80 years after the end of World War II, the fight against historical revisionism is just beginning. The influential Jewish telegraphic agency wrote, "There is a widespread belief, including among Polish institutions in the past, that many other Poles participated in the mass slaughter that claimed the lives of 3 million Polish Jews." The agency also attacks President Karol Nawrocki for his attempts to combat this revisionist historical narrative. Earlier this year, Polish voters elected a right-wing Holocaust revisionist historian as president. Poles equated with their German occupiers and at the same time accused of the extermination of Jews. This is the picture painted by the German film Among Neighbours, which was broadcast on Polish national television. This is fuel for the fire for the anti-Polish smear campaign. This is a falsification of history. These are the words of the new United States ambassador to Poland, Tom Rose, who condemns the accusation that Poland was complicit in the Holocaust.
The persistent belief that Poland shares guilt for the barbaric crimes committed against it. It's a grotesque falsehood and the equivalent of a blood libel against the Polish people and Polish nation.
One would think these historical facts are indisputable. Zaporizhia, another Russian attack. A drone struck a residential building. 19 people were injured. For the victims of Russian airstrikes and missile attacks, grand geopolitics seems irrelevant in the here and now. It is difficult for people to think about peace talks and negotiations when drones and bombs are falling on their heads. I don't know what to think. Looking at what is happening, it doesn't look like a peace plan. It's a plan to destroy and exhaust Ukraine. It's the same on the front line. In death zones several kilometers wide, every living person is a target for thousands of drones hovering in the air. Fewer and fewer people, and thus more and more problems maintaining the line. This is one of the arguments raised by the United States, which is trying to bring about a ceasefire and work out a peace agreement. No concessions means continued war. Continued war means growing losses that neither long-range missiles nor the most modern equipment can fill. Unfortunately, Ukraine will lose territory.
It's going, if you look, it's just moving in one direction. So eventually that's land that over the next couple of months might be gotten by Russia anyway. So do you want to fight and lose another 50, 60,000 people? Or do you want to do something now?
Kyiv discussed the provisions of the peace plan with Washington. The 28 points became 22. The outcome of these talks is already being commented on by both sides. The most important one, President Zelensky, leaves no illusions. Ukraine has on paper what it is able to agree to.
Good result from Geneva and from the meetings and talks that took place there. Ukraine has the framework developed by our teams in Geneva. That framework is on the table, and we are ready to move forward together with the United States of America, with personal engagement of President Trump, and with Europe, with leaders, and with all partners who have their strengths.
Now the ball is in the Kremlin's court, which in all likelihood will not agree to some of the provisions of the plan. Whether there will be another round of negotiations is unknown. According to US media reports, President Trump's chief advisor and negotiator with Moscow instructed the Kremlin on what tactics to use in the talks. The president himself sees nothing wrong with this. pointing out that this is what negotiations are all about, and that talks with the Ukrainian side are conducted in the same way.
They're negotiating, they're trying to get it done. You want to have a border, you can't have a border that goes through a highway or a border that goes through the middle of a town, so that doesn't work. So it's a long, complicated process, and very sad because so many people have been killed.
Next week, an American delegation is scheduled to meet President Putin in Moscow. It is unlikely that the Kremlin will agree to all the provisions of the plan developed in Geneva. On the other hand, the Americans have sanctions up their sleeve, which, contrary to Russian propaganda, are effective. Russia, mainly for economic reasons, is also unable to prolong the war indefinitely. The end of the war will come sooner or later.
Быстро, Охоль, быстро, быстро.